Today on the Techology Show, we talk with Timmy Young about his 6 months living among the homeless in Fort Lauderdale. We touch on Kony 2012, and we also give away an autographed Blue Like Jazz movie poster today on the Techology Show.
Today is Wednesday, March the 14th, 2012. I'm Matthew T.
I'm Heath Mullican.
I'm Steve Stanley.
And I'm Tony Casey. Welcome to the Techology Show. This is a weekly podcast featuring technology, theology, and everything in between. The world's only user antagonistic podcast. This is episode 148. All right, Steve Stanley, back in studio today.
Back in studio.
Yes.
He's on witness release. That's right.
That's right.
And okay, big news. You're getting shed of your iPhone, right?
I am. See this?
And you may
See
even.
This? Where is it?
Yeah,
this.
Yes.
This is going bye-bye.
Okay, and Steve told me that he may even go with just a feacher phone, no smartphone. So,
That's right.
So we're willing to make a donation. We got this portable here, Steve. You put this on your belt.
Where do you put the coal? That's all I need to know.
We're thinking. We're thinking we can see with this.
Yeah,
What are you going to do with your iPhone?
My son-in-law is probably going to inherit it.
Well, that's unfortunate.
Isn't it, though?
We were going to auction it off here at the Techology Show, make a little money for general conference.
No,
so.
I'm getting out of the iPhone
All right,
business.
Master TG, for those that want to make a donation for us.
Yeah, so we've been talking about this. We've got a lot of big things coming up that are expensive as well. We just about flipped when we saw the order form for internet access at the Lexington Convention Center.
I got it yesterday.
And so a part of
no.
that is we, if you value what we're doing and if you value our input there at General Conference, which I just guarantee you there's going to be all kinds of...
It will be the greatest thing ever.
For us, it will. I mean, it's going to be... We've got some huge plans on this.
Yes.
If you value that, we value your value. But would value it a little higher if you click that little orange button up there that says donate, and that will enable you through PayPal to send a donation. We are not a tax exempt like anything like that, so it's not like you'll be seeing any kind of tax return on your money, but it would help us out to receive that way. So feel free, if you can, to do that to help support the show in those ways.
No tax receipt, but their place in heaven will be sweet.
We'll put their name in the credits of the movie.
And Steve, we got a cloth. Steve's going to continue to wipe his forehead with that cloth.
And we'll mail that out.
So we'll get it out to you. Heath, talk about our giveaway.
We do. We have a official
drum roll
Blue Like Jazz movie posters autographed by Donald Miller, the author of Blue Like Jazz, and Steve Taylor, the director of the movie. You have about 30 minutes. If you mention us on Twitter at Techology, or if you post on our Facebook page wall, you will be entered to win, and we're going to be giving that away, and pretty excited about that giveaway and the movie, which opens theaters nationwide April 13th.
Yeah, and if you didn't see last week's show, Heath and Matthew went to a preview of that and they gave us their thoughts. We also last week posted an interview with Donald Miller and the director of the movie as well.
Yes.
So,
yes.
All right, in studio today, we are privileged to have Timmy Young. Timmy is a graduate of Southern Wesleyan University, and increasingly he has had a heart for compassionate ministries, and most recently actually decided to go to Jacksonville, Florida, and live on the streets. He lived a homeless lifestyle for 6 months. And so, Timmy, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you.
A lot of people may not know this. Timmy was in my youth group over at First Wesleyan.
We don't hold that
Central.
against him. No, he turned out great in spite of it.
How's the therapy going?
He did great. Tim, first off, what made you decide to be homeless for 6 months?
When it boils down to it, there's so many different answers I've given to this, but it all comes back around to Scripture. Just reading the Bible, reading God's Word, and just discovering His heart for the poor, for the least of these, all throughout, from Old Testament to New Testament, before Jesus, after Jesus, in the early church. It's just God has His heart for the poor. And so I just felt like, okay, I'm graduating from college. What am I going to do? I want to do something that involves caring for the least of these, because that's where God's heart is. I mean, God's heart is for everybody. He loves everybody, but he really wants his people to step up in caring for the least of these. And so I was like, okay, how can I get a part of that? And so I just started thinking about that. And in a lot of different my missions classes, I had a missions minor. We looked at incarnational ministries and just becoming one of the people you're going to. So if you go to Asia, you live like the people of Asia. You don't like have this nice home you live in while they are in poverty. You go and you live like the people. And so I just began to feel like God telling me, okay, I want you to do incarnational ministry with the homeless. So I was like, really? And so I just started praying about it, and I figured that I'd talk to my mentors and family, and they'd tell me I'm crazy. Then I'd go on with my life. But people kept telling me, yeah, I think I can see you doing that. And my parents said, okay, we'll support you in this. And so I just started going with it. And I just really looked at how Jesus came to be man, how he came to be one of us, to be like us, the incarnation, to show us a more excellent way of love. I mean, he obviously came to die for our sins and bring about redemption and restoration in our lives, but the model in which he did that, he became like us to do that. And so that's really why I felt like God telling me to go love, care for the least of these. Amen. And in the Message, when they translate 1 John 1:14 says, when it said the word became flesh, it said, and Jesus moved into the neighborhood. And so it's saying, like, Jesus came, he moved in with us. And so that's what I wanted to do. I felt like one of the best ways to make community with the homeless was to make them my roommates and my neighbors. So
cool.
Now, at the very beginning, you were looking at Miami, and then actually did a trip to Miami while you were there. Just had the time to go to Fort Lauderdale and visit. Talk a little bit about that and what drew you so much to Fort Lauderdale.
And so I hop on a plane. I knew a Wesleyan pastor down there. I met him at Southern Wesleyan. Someone put me in contact with him. And so I was just talking with him, and he was like, yeah, I got a place in Hollywood, which is a little bit north of Miami. Hollywood, Florida, that is, not Hollywood, California. And so I went there, was staying with him, taking a bus down into Miami, and I was just exploring. I had all maps out, everything, looked up different things online about homeless ministries and just trying to connect. And so for a week I was there, and I just couldn't connect. It wasn't working. And so I was like, one night I was just praying, God, I know you've called me to do this, but I don't know what to do. Nothing's working. It's like, God, I need you to show up. I need you to do something so I can go do this. And he's like, okay, I've been waiting for you to be at this point. Now we'll do something. And so the night before, I just happened to go with the pastor. He's like, yeah, I got a small group. They go feed the homeless in Fort Lauderdale. I don't know if you want to go. And I kind of honestly, I was like, well, I have to go. I felt like obligated. I was there to go see the homeless. I was investigating living with the homeless. And so this homeless ministry popped up. And so I kind of felt like, okay, I got to go. And so I did. And so I thought, oh, this is cool. And there was a bunch of homeless people at this park, and they fed them. And then we went back. And then God was like, that's where I want you to go. And so he just brought that all back to me, how he worked everything out. Because honestly, if at first I felt led to Miami or something like that, or to Fort Lauderdale, I would have been like, that's in Florida, right? I wouldn't have really taken it seriously, wouldn't have really considered it if that had been placed on my heart. And but he drew me to Miami to point me to where he ultimately wanted me, in Fort Lauderdale. And so it was just this community there which I could get connected in. I didn't have to work incredibly hard to try to find homeless people, to see where they were. There's already a group there ready, and it's like, okay, this is where I can just come get plugged in, come get connected. And so that's why ultimately I felt like God lead me to Fort Lauderdale.
So explain to our listeners what the first night was like.
That I'd like to say I just showed up, I was excited, and everything went well.
It was like camp. It was like church camp.
Was there mint on your pillow?
There was no mint on my pillow.
Okay, all right.
And so I show up, get off the plane. It was about noon or so. I get off the plane, and I hop on a bus. It's just one bus ride from the airport to kind of the park where a lot of the homeless people gathered. So I hop on the bus, go there, and I was kind of like, okay, I'm just going to take a deep breath, and I was going to go over there, and it started raining. And so I pull out my umbrella, stand under my umbrella, wait for the rain to stop. I actually walked into like a parking garage and tried to stay. It was a downpour. It was one of the worst rains I've ever seen.
It's Florida.
And so I was just trying to stay dry. And then after that, it rained for hour or two, really hard. And so then I went over to the park and just started talking to people. And I like to say, the first thing is just started talking to people about God and drawing people to the Lord. But my first question was, so I walked up to someone who's sitting on like this wall, and I walk up to him. He was homeless. I'm like, so how do we eat? And so that was my first question. Like, I don't know how we do this. And then I just asked him about different ministries and like where you can go to get food. And so he started telling me, started to get a layout for the land of where all this different things happen. And then he's telling me that there was a group that was going to come in a couple hours to feed. And so I went and I stayed around for that. They came. I kind of talked to them, and then it kind of hit me while they were there. I'm not going back home. I'm not going to a friend's house. I'm not going to a hotel. I'm not going to stay in a tent. Like, I had to go find a place to sleep.
Pretty overwhelming.
It was terrifying. I was like, I don't cry much, but I cried a little bit. The thought of that, I was like, oh my goodness, I have to go find. I have to hide from the police. I have to hide from other homeless people. I have to be out of sight and still try to sleep in all this. And so as it started to get dark, I just got up, left the park, and started walking. Walking till I felt like no one else was going to walk that far. And so I felt like I'd have some security.
I'll walk to all the other people.
I'll outwalk everybody.
I've got good health. If I can just outwalk everybody.
And when you got to Orlando.
And so I walked for about a half an hour or so. And then I saw there was this church property, and there were some bushes. I'm like, okay, well, I feel like I can hide behind there. And so I walked, hid behind these bushes.
Incredible.
And threw down a pair of jeans to like kind of lay on because I had some extra clothes. But then the thing that hit me is like, oh, I was staying dry under my umbrella earlier, but where I'm sleeping wasn't. And so it was still a little damp and wet from the rain. And so that was kind of a realization to me, like, oh, this isn't going to be very nice at all. And so I laid down. And the other thing, it was about 75, 80 degrees at night, so it was a nice temperature. But the other thing that I didn't really take into account was the bugs. And so I laid down probably about 8 o'clock, didn't get up till 5. I didn't sleep those 9 hours. I slept maybe an hour of that because it's just traffic going by, and there was a cop car kind of like 100 feet from where I was. I was like, dude, does he know I'm here? And so I was just like terrified, but never came over, so I'm assuming he didn't know I was there. But then I woke up from like the hour sleep I got, and I was just completely destroyed by bugs. And so I was then had to start.
He's talking about bugs. There's bug crawling right here.
You brought it with you, didn't you?
Say, man,
that's great props, man.
Live, man.
Hey, Timmy, what was the most surprising thing about being homeless? I mean, I can think of any number of things that would be a big surprise, I think. Just from sleeping the last few nights in Haiti, there were many surprises there too. But this is more radical by far. You're out there exposed, unprotected, exposed to the elements and to other people.
I was thinking about this. What is the most? It's so hard to pick one thing. It's surprising people's reaction stories. Sometimes you see the amazing, kind things that people do, and then just the incredibly rude, mean things that individuals do. And so, I mean, just one story involving like that. One point, I was sleeping like kind of in this courtyard area back behind some bushes there. It's pretty well hidden. A lot of people would walk by there and no one would ever see me. And so I was not sitting there. I was laying there trying to sleep, and a lot of people were walking by because it's close to downtown, so they'd be walking by. And one person, I would hear their conversations a good bit if I wasn't asleep yet. And so one person was saying, yeah, one time I saw this homeless person sleeping on the side of the road, and I walked up, and he basically said he relieved himself on the homeless person, and he was proud of it. And all of his friends started laughing, and I was just like, I'm glad I'm behind this bush. He doesn't see me. And so that's like one thing that's really just
subhuman.
Yeah, it really is. And so
as a follow-up to that, what was the most frightening thing that took place?
The most frightening thing, that's a good question. I would say I was never necessarily scared for my life, but I'd say kind of one of the worst moments was when I got that place where I was sleeping probably a couple weeks after that incident. I got kicked out of there. It was about 2 a.m. I hear it was funny because there was one person who would kind of sleep in front of the bushes, and I was sleeping behind the bushes. And I think that person had been staying there for a while. And so it's kind of their statement, I know you're here. And so I think they would intentionally sleep there so that they didn't think I was going unnoticed. And so they were doing that. But then some other people started staying in the courtyard area, and they weren't getting up and leaving before security got there, and they were kind of leaving trash around. And so there was no nighttime security, but the morning security kind of reported it, and so at night someone would come out and they kicked us out. And so I hear the security guard, and she's just saying, yo, you got to get up. And she wasn't back behind the bushes, and so I was thinking, that's really unfortunate for the person in front of me getting kicked out. That was my thought. And then sure enough, it keeps going. It's like, man, this person's determined not to get up. And then she like walks behind the bushes like, oh, well,
I'm the one determined not to get up.
And so this is 2 or 3 in the morning, and she's saying the police were coming, and I don't think the police were coming. I think it was just a threat, but I couldn't take that chance.
Right.
And so I had to get up and go. And so it's just a thought that I really didn't have anywhere to go between 2. The next place that would be open to the public was this park at 5. And so it was just 3 hours of I had nowhere to go. And so it was like...
So what, did you wander for 3 hours?
Yeah, I just walked around for 3 hours. And anytime I'd see like a police officer or something, I'd worry they might stop. I mean, I wasn't doing anything if I'm just walking on the sidewalk. But it's definitely cause for suspicion. Like, I would understand if I was a cop driving by, someone's walking around at 3 in the morning, I would probably at least stop to see what's going on. And so that was one of the most frightening things. Like, I just didn't know what was going to happen for the next 3 hours. I had nowhere to go. And so that was an experience.
How are the churches and Christians there engaging with the homeless population? I know you've told me that you knew where to go for different meals, but as you think back, were churches doing a really good job of trying to help people, or could they have done a better job?
I think there's always room for improvement, always room for doing a better job, but I really think the churches of Fort Lauderdale stepped up. They really stepped up to caring for the least of these. There was this organization called Hope South Florida where like 8 kind of churches gathered together to kind of, okay, how can we address these issues going on in our city? And so there's like 8 or 9 main ones, but then they worked with up to 40 churches or something like that for different things. And so they really stepped up in that. And so almost every night of the week you could go, you knew where to go to get a meal because of that. And then if not, there are other places you could go that individuals were just coming. And so there was one of my friends, one of my homeless friends just was talking to someone else saying, yeah, if you're hungry and homeless in Fort Lauderdale, there's something wrong with you, because there are churches have really stepped up. If you know where to go, obviously if you don't know where to go, and there are homeless people who don't know where to go, then you'll go hungry and things like that. But for the most part, if you know where to go, then you're not going to be hungry. I mean, you're not going to be comfortable, you're not going to be full every night, but you're not going to be wondering, am I going to eat today? Am I going to get enough to eat today? There will be enough. And so I think the churches have done a good job.
This is a really important point. So they weren't saying there is this or that government program or agency, but go to this church or that church.
Yeah.
I wonder if this isn't a part of what Jesus means by us being salt and light in our community.
Yeah.
And for communities like mine and churches like mine, how salty are we? How bright are we in our area?
Well, also, too, Steve, I mean, one of the things I'm impressed, and it's only your experience, but it sounds like these churches were so well organized in terms of...
Yeah.
And if you bring in that many
and
churches...
cooperative.
Yeah, that's bringing that many churches and that many denominations together, you know you've got doctrinal differences, but they have set this aside for compassionate ministry's sake, which seems to be pretty impressive.
And so the churches really had a good reputation. I mean, there were some in which didn't have a good reputation and weren't necessarily stepping up, or some that used to and now kind of have not, they're not as outreach to the least of these anymore. But for the most part, if something would be going on, or someone would say something unkind to a church or to a member of a church or something, other people would say, hey, look, they're trying to help. And so the churches really were being a good light in their salty.
You mentioned somebody who was new to the streets down there and didn't know where to eat and had been dumpster diving. Talk about that conversation and how just the kind of the look on his face when he realized, oh, there's places I can go to get my needs met.
He ended up being a really good friend of mine, and he didn't know where to go. We ended up homeless about the same time. He was at the beginning of September. I got there like a week into September, and so we'd been there about the same time, but I got quickly connected with all the churches and different things like that, and I knew where to go, but he didn't know where to go. And so he was dumpster diving, and there was like a stretch of like 2 weeks where he barely ate at all. He just didn't know where to go. He didn't know anything. And so then one day there was a lot of times at this one park on Tuesday nights, a group of churches and believers would come together and feed the homeless. And so I was waiting for that, and someone randomly comes up in a van and feeds out of the van. And I was like, okay. Well, I went over there to see who it was, and this future friend, he wasn't my friend at that point, I hadn't met him yet, but he happened to be walking by while that van came by, and he's like, oh, food. And so he stopped, got some food. I went over there, and I hadn't seen him at any of the different feedings, and that's kind of where I got to know people the most and built relationships at these different meals in which I would share with them. And so I was just talking to him. I was like, hey, you know where to go to get meals? And he was saying, no, I don't. And so I just like drew him a map and was saying, okay, if you need to go on Monday night, you can get food here, Tuesday night here, Wednesday night here, Thursday night here. During the day, you can go here. And so I told him about all these different places, and I said, yeah, and we can hang out, and I'll talk to you there. And that was kind of just like the nice, polite thing you say, like, you can come over whenever, and you don't really, you mean it, but you kind of don't expect it to happen. And so like the next night at the meal,
You were fast friends.
I was sitting with someone else, and then he kind of seemed like dejected that I didn't seek him out and sit with him. And so like, okay, I need to make a point. So the next night I did, and then we became really good friends after that. And he just really, through that, he really he saw the compassion that the churches had and how people were reaching out to him. And he grew up in the church believing that there was a God and there was this Jesus person, but not really. That was about it. And so, but then he just became hungry for God and seeking out God through this, because so many people he was heartbroken by it. He was just like, people are really caring and they're reaching out. And so he committed his life to Christ, and he read the whole New Testament in 2 weeks. And he's just like, I was thinking, why don't I do that?
Okay, we got some believers in the church that need to
Somebody's asking on the chat room whether you stayed in character all the time, or did you ever, kind of drop your veil and let them know what you were up to?
That was really, I get that question a lot when people ask, and I never knew. When I was going, that was kind of one thing I prepared for. I was like, do I tell people? Do I not tell people? And so it's just how the Holy Spirit led. And however it was, there were some people the first time, most people I didn't tell. For the most cases, I didn't tell people what I was doing. But most people realized that something was different. Like, okay, you're still young, you're nice to people, you're considerate. And so they knew something was different, but I wouldn't always tell people. And so there was people who was there the whole 6 months. I never told them why I was there, what I was doing. There are other people who the first time I met them and talked to them, I told them why I was there and what I was doing. So it really just depended on how the Holy Spirit led. And I was open about sharing my faith, but it wasn't necessarily, this is why I'm here.
Let me ask you this. What do you think is some of the biggest misconceptions that the church have about homeless people?
I think a lot of people will see, okay, there are these drunks sitting on the side of the road panhandling, trying to get my money for beer and drugs and things like that. And sure, there are those homeless people. Those people obviously exist. That's why there's a stereotype. But at the same time, those are the people you see. Those are the people that are different and stand out to you. And so you're like, okay, that's a homeless person. But there's so many people who, if you're walking alongside the road, you don't realize they're homeless. They're clean shaven, they're nice, they keep themselves to the best they can, looking good, and you don't even realize it. There's some people who don't have a home but manage to keep their car, and so they live out of their car.
So the stereotype, basically.
Yeah, and those are the ones that you notice because they're different, but there's so many homeless people who just blend right in and you don't even know. You could be talking to them and you don't even realize they're homeless.
Yeah. Do you think any of them hold down 9-to-5 jobs?
Yeah, some of them do. Wow. Some of them it's because they haven't got enough money. Like this person who was my friend who didn't know where to get all this food. He got a job and was working. He just didn't have enough money to get a place to live yet, and so he was working towards where he could get that. And so he was working, and there's actually a story involving that. He had his first interview and a second interview, then it's kind of like a final interview. And for the final one, he came in and typically he left his bag somewhere, because that's all of his stuff, but he wasn't able to do that because he was in a rush going from one place to another. And so he had 2 bags with him, and he put them on the desk, and he's talking to the manager. And the manager kind of looked at him, looked at the bags, and he kept doing that throughout like the conversation they were having. And my friend was like, "Do you want me to move the bags?" He's like, "No, it just makes me feel like you're homeless." Like, as if that's going to disqualify him from getting the job, because he had already gone through the interview process. They had already liked his resume, liked him as an individual, but now suddenly, because he's homeless, they don't want him to work there. And so that was kind of like, whoa, that shouldn't be the case. If he had already met all the qualifications, if he had already, they liked him as an individual and they believed in the performance that he was going to do, then the fact that he currently doesn't have a place to live shouldn't affect the fact that they still want to offer him the job. And so he kind of weaseled his way around saying he wasn't homeless without lying. And so then, yeah. But that was interesting.
What about if you could have 5 minutes in front of the microphone in any of our churches and say, you know, most people have good hearts. Most Christians really do want to see this world changed in positive ways, lasting ways for the glory of God. What are some of the things that you could tell us that would be beneficial for us to do right now?
I think the first thing is to put yourself in situations in which God can move. Because if you're trying to say, okay, how can I get involved helping the homeless, or whatever the issue is, how can I get involved in making disciples, how can I get involved in something like that? If you're not placing yourselves in situations in which you can care for the least of these, then you're not going to be able to
intentionality.
do it. Yeah, you got to be intentional about it. You got to put yourself in positions where it's going to happen. I mean, there are.
Where would that be for us? I mean, you know, most of the people in my church are elderly and on retirement or fixed incomes. And they're going to go to a restaurant once or twice a month. They're going to go to the grocery store about once a week. They may stop at the library. Where are they going to run into these people? How do they put themselves in a place?
That's one thing I've been thinking about too, because right now I'm not homeless anymore, and so I'm trying to think, okay, how can I now engage?
Tim's problem is he's not homeless.
Right. And so I'm trying to think, how can I get engaged in caring for the least of these? And so, I mean, some people, their first thought is, okay, well, maybe I can give a meal every once in a while, make food or buy food, take it out to the homeless. And sure, that's a good thing. People are always in need of food. And so that's one thing. But it's also, there are different places that are already going on, different soup kitchens and different places in which meals are happening. And so, I mean, I'm sure this is one thing I've thought about doing, is going to one of these soup kitchens or places that's giving out food and saying, okay, I'm willing to, how much does it cost for you to give food? Like, I will pay that for myself and kind of just then sit with the homeless and talk to them and just be there in their scenario and what's going on with them. And so then just have a meal with them there. And so you're still paying, contributing towards the ministry that's going on.
So part of this is that find out if there's something going on in your community, and as a church, become a part of it.
And it has to be the church. I mean, I got a prayer request in the offering this week. That's where they turn in prayer requests. And somebody from the halfway house right behind our church said, please pray for, and then gave the guy's name. Well, I know the guy. I met him. Said he left the halfway house on such and such a date and has not been seen or heard from since, which is a violation, of course, of his occupancy there. And then this, I pray to God he hasn't returned to his drugs. And the heart of me, but I only have so much time to devote to it, but the heart of me just wants to put everything else aside and go find that guy. And I can hardly wait till I'm through this Master of Divinity thing so that I have a lot more time to be and to do the things I want to do. But a church working together could do that, could find one guy, or could at least get enough word around the community that those who know him, whether he wants to be found or not, would be able to say, hey, that's a church that cares about this guy.
Well, listen, there are all kinds of questions we could ask Tim. Tim's going to hang with us here for the rest of the show. It has been a real privilege. I think you can kind of see why we've had him on the show today. I'm the DBMD chair, the District Ministerial Board of Development chair. This is the organization for our district that handles those that are in the process of ordination. Timmy's in that, and it has been so impressive to watch him and to take his calling seriously. And even now, as he's just trying to figure out, okay, so where is it God is placing me? Yeah, if you're looking for someone to come speak at your church, this is the guy, and we're glad he's in studio with us.
And if you go on YouTube and search for Timmy Young, homeless Fort Lauderdale, there's actually a really good 5-part interview that a guy in Fort Lauderdale did with Timmy. It's about 20 to 25 minutes long. Really good, and
we'll see if we can pull those up and link them to our show notes.
Yep.
The guys on the chat room are expressing their thanks to you too, big time.
Yeah.
So.
I'm glad I could be here.
Alrighty, well, let's keep things rolling. It's time for
Download of the Week.
Yes, it's been 2 or 3 weeks since we had the download of the week.
I
Teach,
know,
talk
we've
about
had
our
this one-
download.
Wow, we've had this one on the docket for quite a while now. Log Me In, which is a remote computer access solution that has all kinds of different clients and ways to set it up. Basically, you install this thing on your Mac, PC. Is there a Linux client? Do we know?
No.
There's not currently?
No.
Okay. Well, Mac or PC, and it lets you remotely access and control your computer basically from anywhere. You can do it from a web browser of another computer, from an application on either an iPhone, iPad. I'm not sure if there's an Android application. There may be, but just all kinds of options.
There is an Android app.
They have some very higher end features, but their basic service that lets you do so much is free.
Yep.
It costs $0. So now we've got something just awesome that we are going to do. And Tony, let me get you switched over. All right. So check this out. We are going to throw this beautiful iPhone up here, and this is actually my iPhone. And Tony's going to demonstrate the Log Me In application. So
all right,
go
here
for
we
it.
go.
Give us your running
and I've got
here.
3 or 4 computers you can see on Log Me In. And one of those is my server here at the house, so I'll just grab that and then grab this right here, and this will log me in. So now what I'll be doing is I'll be controlling the computer or the server.
Right here in this
Right.
it's right in this closet right here, and this is where
we're trying to get people to donate to the show, and you're telling them, "Man, we got servers everywhere here."
Hey, listen,
in the house.
I got this server free from Michael Bryant, our good tech guy.
wow, nice.
So like right here, I mean, this is like
All of our
Dropbox
hardware
on my server.
comes
I
to us
could
free
open
of
that if I
charge
wanted to.
from the beast.
And
Are you serious, Bart?
what?
you could do banking, you could do whatever you wanted.
Yeah, I keep there's some programs I just keep on the server, so literally I can do my checkbook if I'm in.
Why don't you go ahead and do that real quick?
I'll give you the password and everything.
Yes.
But I mean that's just an example. You can do it with your iPhone. One of the things that TJ and I both do is like with family members. So my stepmom in Wisconsin, she called me up, I don't know, 3-4 weeks ago, was having some issues with her computer. So it has Log Me In on there. So I just take her credentials, I log into her computer and say step away from the computer. Same way for my mom. She lives in Georgia. So if she has trouble, I can just go on her computer. As I said, if I'm out of town and Sherry needed a check printed, all my checks are computer generated. All I'd have to do is say, hey, go put one of the blank checks in the printer. I would hop on my server, pull up the program, and print the check for her, no matter where I am. So again, and the best part of this, tis free. Tis free. Now you can buy a paid version. I'm not quite sure what it's about.
It adds some extra features. I think it has kind of like a Dropbox feature where there's like a file synchronization to other computers, and as well as like now they're toting a HD version. I don't know what all that is about. I mean, for what I would use it for, it's this kind of stuff, and the basic service gets you exactly what you need, and is quite fantastic, I think.
Yeah. So if you're not taking advantage of that, we recommend that you do so.
Yeah, and how cool that we just demoed that right there on the screen. This is a new...
Of course, the Justice Department is trying to contact us now. I don't know if this has something to do with a misdirected signal or command. NORAD is on full alert.
You guys can see that Matthew's been playing in a good way.
I have. I've been working hard ever since we got the hardware.
Toys everywhere.
We've got
New toys.
this Hackintosh has really made.
We even have a
fun.
new setup in the studio. I don't know if you know.
Yeah,
any of our
people
viewers-
caught on.
I couldn't
that,
find my
yeah.
way around.
But basically, to fix our lighting, we were having some lighting issues.
Yeah.
We were washing out everybody's faces, so I think that this has done it. I mean, I think our lighting is actually spot
Heath
on
looks
today.
so good.
And if you look over my shoulder, do you see that aura, that glow? It's like what they paint into the paintings of the saints. But with me, it's just all natural. Look at it. Yeah, I tell you.
Okay. Well, on that
If
happy
if
note,
I hold myself just right,
why don't we just keep trugging down the tracks here and take a look at They Said It.
jealous, aren't you?
Read my lips.
I'm going to say this again.
I've never taken steroids or HGH.
I took the initiative in creating the internet.
The Macintosh, of all the machines I've ever seen, is the only one that meets that standard.
I'm not a crook.
If you know what you're doing here, slide out.
On one hand, you could call Kony 2012 compelling, horrific, emotionally draining, and a worthy cause for donations. On the other, you might see it as a cynical use of images of terror and child slavery to prop up an outdated campaign to rid Central Africa of the warlord Joseph Kony and to make money. Peg McEntee, columnist for the Salt Lake Tribune, responding to the Kony 2012 project and video that has gone viral. Source, the Salt Lake Tribune.
We adjusted so much to the culture that the line between church and Rotary seemed rather thin. Dr. Will Willeman, speaking on the topic, the future of mainline Protestantism, addressing over 100 clergy this past weekend in Salisbury, North Carolina. Willeman predicted a bleak future, noting that mainline denominations, quote, had unknowingly given people a theology of godlessness, close quote. Source, Salisbury Post.
I don't know. You have to ask him. I cannot answer that question for anybody. All I know is I am a sinner, and God has forgiven me of my sins. You have to ask every person. He said he's a Christian, so I just have to assume that he is. Franklin Graham, CEO of the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association, responding after being asked if President Obama has accepted Jesus Christ as his Savior. Source, Christianity Today. All right, so let's start out with Kony 2012. A whole lot of things we could say here. Now, before we talk, let's do this. We didn't talk about this in the pre-show, but let's get this out of the way. Before we talk about the project itself, let's talk about how the landscape has changed in terms of someone getting their message out.
Yes.
This has had 72 million hits, and it wasn't a major news agency who started this. This is
One
guy, his project. And so let's start by the technology of this.
It's only been how long since they put this out? Not even 10 days since it was posted.
Well, he's been working at it for a few years,
right?
But the latest project push,
the video,
70 million views, and that's doubled since over the weekend. It was like 30, so it is just multiplied, and that is absolutely remarkable. It's also gives me a little bit of pause because
you're on the World Wide Web.
but anybody could. I mean, think if this was a very
negative, nefarious.
I mean,
what?
think if I'm not comparing these guys to Hitler, but what if Hitler had the internet? You know what? And to get his propaganda out, I mean that's.
So this is our message to do with the internet. This is our last show, by the way.
Yeah, but I think as we'll get to in a moment, there are competing voices and other perspectives, and they're all emerging. That's the beautiful thing about the internet is that nobody owns one part of it.
Right.
That's why we as a show are so committed to the freedom of the internet and not allowing it to be censored. Because eventually truth will out. You get these other voices. We have sources and trusted places of information.
Yeah, no, I mean, great point.
Yeah. Well, I made it. Yeah, thank you.
I didn't need for you to say that, Tony. If it comes from my mouth, it's a great point.
But you've got a couple of things going on. You have the video that went viral, I guess I first started knowing about it from people changing their Facebook profile picture, their Twitter profile picture to the Kony 2012 logo, and it made me, what is this? And people mentioning it on Twitter, and that made me.
You couldn't ignore it.
Well, I didn't, but yeah, I mean, it was almost overwhelming. I mean, if you're talking, the video has 70 million views. I would love to see how many times was it mentioned on. I mean, that's a statistic you can check on, but it just.
Well, this guy has ramped up. He's got stars that are what was it? There was a number of stars and a number of policy
he called them
shapers.
cult makers. At the bottom of after where the video was there on his page, he had a list, and it was like he made like these posters of every one of these people. And his thing is, when these people speak, people listen, and it really catches a wave. So what he tried to do, and it was genius, was say, hey, you know, as you watch this movie, now send a Twitter message to Justin Bieber to watch this video or to talk about this. Send this message to
Clooney was on.
George Clooney to watch this. And then what happened is these guys got all those messages, saw it. Now they start talking about it, and now a multitude of people hears about it. It's a really interesting way that they made it happen. Very smart.
He's been smart. That's the word. He's been smart about what he's doing.
Let's talk about the project itself. Heath, you were the first one to discover this. Missionary Bob Bagley, Wesleyan missionary, actually made a comment about this because he's in Africa and he's hearing all the.
I believe it was actually Steven Sheets posted something on Facebook, and I just asked a question. Steven posted to an article that was critical of the project, and I was just asking questions, and Bob sent me a private message and sent me a link to an article that is from Global Partners, the Wesleyan Missions Organization, and we're going to put the link in our show notes. But here's a couple of things that they said. These are kind of the high points. Number one, that a lot of the footage in this, first of all, they say, hey, they're doing a good thing, and that, we're not against them in any way, shape, or form. But a lot of the footage they use is old. That the geographic scope of Kony's reign of terror has been greatly reduced. He's actually been pushed out of Uganda. So he's a problem, but not as big as he used to be. Number two, the LRA is only one part of this problem. There are many groups that are doing some really catastrophic things that are really bad. And so let's just say they arrest Kony today. The quote, he says, you remove a major bad apple, but the apple barrel is still contaminated. And then the third thing was that their campaign focuses mainly on the child soldiers who've been forced into service, and that there are so many people outside of these children who have been affected by mass rape and been terrorized. And how do you engage with those people, and how do you help them? And that this problem goes way beyond the rescue and the liberation of these child soldiers. Oh, go ahead.
Have you watched the video?
I've watched part of it. I've not watched the whole thing.
In the video, he has this video list of several unsavory characters in the world and situations resulting from them. And he identifies the fact that this is just one aspect and one guy, but this is the first one. We'll get to the next one next time.
Right.
And this list was not compiled by him. It was compiled, I believe, by the United Nations. Some organization.
Basically, it's the Department of Justice for global stuff. I think
so
it is tied with the United Nations.
This was the baddest guy on their list, and this was the most heinous circumstance.
That's
so it's this one first.
Yeah, the UN
then we'll move to number
him
two.
as number one.
Right.
Yeah.
And one of the things that one of the points that Bob makes, and this is what was challenging to me, is in Bob's article is, Bob is the area director for the continent of Africa for the Wesleyan Church, but he basically said, man, we've been sending a cry out, and the response we've gotten, I guess, from North America.
You know what? We'll try to get Bob to come on the show via Skype.
Could I say something to Bob through you? Bob,
Move your lips, move your lip teeth.
glom on to the back of this Kony 2012 project now while things are heating up.
That's what I'm saying. This is
the
a great opportunity
yeah.
to piggyback, and we have a lot of Wesleyans who, I mean, and let's be completely honest, no matter how you feel about invisible children, there is this, what's the word I'm trying to, there's not a cloud, I don't want to say a cloud, but there's some people that are skeptical of that organization. Boom, we have a great, proven...
Bob is with us.
That's right.
He joins us via the chat room right now.
Who?
Bob Bagley is in the chat room, so he's heard the call, the cry. We need you on the show.
You guys, watch you.
Yeah, well, Bob, we want to get you on. I mean, I'll shoot you an email and like to pull you in via Skype.
Exactly.
In the coming weeks here.
And what better environment in which to now appeal to churches for help than this one that has been created for you. What was it Rick Warren said about catching the wave that God is creating and riding that wave rather than trying to start your own?
Well, one of the things that Bob points out, too, is that, keep in mind this organization is not a Christian organization. One of the criticisms that I have heard is that some people don't like the militant aspect of this. Also, the Today Show yesterday spent about there was a 2-minute segment, not a whole lot of time, but they said, people need to understand where money's going to for this. A third of it goes to video production cost. Another third goes to paying employees. And so there are people who are making a full-time living off of this, and then all the travel expenses. So the last third, and this number's been debated, but anywhere from about 16%, maybe as much as 30% is getting to actual aid in Africa.
Well, Bob Bagley just said that hits on the Global Partners Africa, it's gpafrica.org website, increased from 5 to 700 a day. Since
Incredible.
Not 500.
No.
5
to 700.
Not 500 to 700. 5 with no zeros after it.
I put that out, and I mean, I've seen it reposted on Facebook, and I cannot say enough. I mean, it was so timely, and I mean, it was just what I was looking for. I'm like, man, how do I? And to hear it from somebody who's on the ground as part of our denomination, let me just say on behalf of the entire denomination, I speak for every Wesleyan on the planet, is Bob, thank you, number one, for this article.
It was
thank
great.
you for the work you're doing.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
Great point of clarity.
Spoke for me.
Yeah, and like I say, if Bob just clicks the donate button, we're getting him on the show.
No, that's not how it works. Don't listen to that. That's not how it works. Oh, my.
He knows I'm kidding. TJ's having a heart attack over here.
Yeah.
All right.
Smelling salts.
Well, let's move on here. Heath is the one that put me onto this story. Willimans Comments this past Saturday. I know.
I hate we did not know about this. I would have loved to have gone to this event in Salisbury.
Steve, now you've got a particular take on this I think is interesting. Well, let me just say this. For if you're not familiar with this story, Willeman spoke this past week. He talked about the future of mainline denominations, basically said the future is bleak. He noted the spirituality. We got that in here where he says, we've kind of produced this godlessness within the mainlines. He also talks about something that's coming. He calls it the death tsunami, that most of these mainline churches are populated with senior citizens that in 20 years are going to be gone. The demographic is going to be gone.
Yeah, death tsunami is what he called it.
Yeah. You have a kind of a different take on this.
I think my generation, we need to take seriously the call of Scripture to repent, and to live in a state of repentance is one thing, but there are specific things for which we need to repent. One of them is making church what we have made of it. Pretty much. We've run through the list before that we politicized it. We have made it about what we like, our preferences, and it hasn't been missional. I hate to use that word because it's used so much in so many different contexts it almost loses meaning, but I think at the same time all of us have a baseline understanding of that word. And something happened a few years ago. People that had formerly attended the church that I pastored in Florida 2 or 3 years after I was there, helped to plant another church in that community, which is now a large and growing church. And they kept pumping, the pastor of that church kept pumping to the thousands that came, a particular Sunday. Come this Sunday. Don't miss this Sunday. This is going to be the Sunday of the year. You don't want to miss this. This will make sense out of everything we're doing, and I tell you, this is going to be awesome. Bring all your friends and neighbors. And they came that Sunday. I know this is a church that has bands and excellent music. I mean, a lot of their musicians also play for the Disney World and Lake Buena Vista resorts, and they came that Sunday. There were no greeters. There was no bulletin. The air conditioning was shut off. This is Central Florida. And on the stage, there was this black construction plastic that was draped over the curtains from top to bottom, one four-legged chair with electrician's tape sealing up a busted seam in it, and a spotlight and a microphone. And the pastor came out, and the gist of what he said was, if this is all we had to offer, would Jesus be enough? And he talked about the first century church, and he talked about the persecuted church, and he talked about people today who are incarcerated and others for whom Christ is everything. And he said the reason why this service is the most important is you and I are in danger of thinking that church is the guitars and the tambourines and the glitzy PowerPoints and the wonderful environment in which we meet. And he said it is none of that, because if we had all of that but didn't have Christ.
Yeah.
And that one Sunday fired that church up. The people got it. That's the service they still talk about, and it helped bring them into alignment on being the presence of Christ in that community. And my generation, I think I, as a pastor, need to apologize for making it about, and statistics are important and all of these other things, but for making it chiefly about achieving statistical results instead of achieving kingdom results that are lasting for eternity, and doing the thing that's the right thing, whether we get the praise of people or whether our name gets in the newspaper or not, doing it because it is the thing Jesus wants done.
Working on behalf of the organization, not on behalf of the kingdom.
Right. And so I'm done with my rant.
Know,
that's it.
Here's what I like about this. Willeman says, quote, we had unknowingly given people a theology of godlessness. Now, I don't know if it's fair to say unknowingly. But this is something that, Steve, you and I have talked about. Yeah. Our friendship's, 8 or 9 years long now. This is a constant drum that we...
It was.
I hate that it ended today. And his comment about the Rotary Club. How many times have we said this? Where, listen, the church has something unique to offer, and that is that we are people made in the Imago Dei, and that there is a reality outside of the physical reality.
Absolutely.
And when you take that away, how then is the church any different than the Rotary Club? In many ways, the Rotary Club may be able to do better. We can just get rid of the governance system that we're having and all the money we're spending on that, and just to hook up with this civic organization. Man, we have had that conversation over and over and over again.
I saw this past week something came through my email about the chief question was, and they were sincere about this, was how happy are your people when they leave? Well, go to the temple and ask those guys how happy they were when they left that day that Jesus turned the tables over and called them all a den of robbers. Sometimes truth needs to challenge us in ways that leave us feeling uncomfortable enough that when we leave, God can get us in a place where he can show us the better way to live.
One of my favorite lines is the last line of this article where he says, we're trying to adapt to the world. Now it's time to tell the world this is what we believe. I think we have gotten so, and I don't know that there's anything wrong with being seeker sensitive. I do think that we need to have an attractional church. But I believe that in this day and age, what's attractional is a church that is willing to draw a line in the sand. This is what we believe. This is what we do not waver on. These are our core values. One of our core values is people matter to God. And so I feel like, just like you said, Steve, people are so hungry for the truth. You think about it. Everybody, if you have a computer, if you have a smartphone, if you have a television, everyone in especially in the United States, is suffering from information overload. And how do we filter out what's true and what's not? And we have the opportunity as the church to say, you don't have to fact check us. You don't have to look us up on Wikipedia. This is what we believe. This is the foundational truth of all creation, of who Jesus Christ is. People are so hungry for that. And I feel like if we continue to just offer them guitars and a light show and
nothing sinful about those.
No,
nothing sinful. But when you talk about attractional ministry, what are we attracting them to? What is the center of attraction for us? Is it not Jesus and what He does in us and with us and through us? And I'm in a Christian ethics class right now. Shout out to Dr. K. Steve McCormick of Nazarene Theological Seminary, who's my professor and doing a great job educating the uneducable with me. One of the books that we read, he asked us the question, what does Stanley Hauerwas mean by the statement that the church does not have a social ethics? It is a social ethics. And the more I unpack that, that's like an endless onion. And the more I get through the layers, the more I'm seeing that this is true. We don't have a set of beliefs per se. What we have is Christ teaching us how to live Christianly, and this in and of itself becomes the social ethic by which the world, look, little kids being forced into armies has been done for as long as there have been humans on this planet. Why is it heinous now? What religion, what source of information brings that into the spotlight and says this is unconscionable and wrong and must stop? Is it not the church? So it is when the church lives on our block or across the world with this Christianly commitment, this commitment to live Christianly, I should say, that God's kingdom expands and the world, the hurt of the world, begins to be ministered to.
All right, we're going to need to wrap things up here. We have a giveaway.
Wait a minute, the offering?
Yeah. We have a giveaway, so how are we going to do this here, guys?
Punch the donate
let me
button.
set this up. I've got my list here, and I need to go to random and do
right.
it. So while I do that, why don't you talk again about donations and why we've set that up and what people can do?
Yeah, we're going to be at General Conference. For those of you that are Wesleyans, it's the Wesleyan Church General Conference, and just a lot of cost with that. We don't have a revenue stream as of yet, and so much of what we've done has been sacrificial. We've done it on our own, and so
our swimsuit posters never really did take off.
They did not take off. We lost money on that.
Right.
And so if you want to go to our website...
Hold on. Let's make this happen quick, sir.
Anyway, go to our website, click on the button, $1,000 donation. That'd be great.
Yeah.
No, whatever.
And I don't want to. Yes, I'm going to let the cat out of the bag. If you're wondering, well, what are we going to be doing at General Conference? Well, there will be a live stream, and a lot of people will be watching that live stream from General Conference. But then there's going to be a lot of people watching it, and you're going to hear things talked about, and you're going to wonder, well, how does this affect me? What does this mean? And we're going to be offering color commentary. I mean, I'm so excited to have a round table and to discuss how these issues, how the business of the church affects the business of the church. And lots of interviews. Lots of good
we have
people.
confirmed we have three people joining us because both Steve and Tony are delegates, so they won't be able to be with us in the booth. So we have gotten 3 other people who will join myself and Heath for this. Can we go ahead and share the names?
Oh, yeah.
All right. David and Keith Drury.
Yay! Big
have
time,
confirmed that they will be,
Great.
that they will be joining us for color commentary.
Great.
As well as Steven Sheets is going to be coming to help us.
Another
with that
big
too.
yay.
Yeah. So I'm excited at the potential and possibility. So it'll be that, but we'll also be doing floor interviews with all the different booths and ministries that are represented there, talking with them about what their place is in the church, how they can help the local church and stuff like that, and putting those out, as well as pulling in. I'm sure that it won't just be the the three that I just mentioned and us. We'll pull in other people from time to time as they're wandering around the floor, getting their opinions on what's happening and what's going on.
And we will try to get as many free premiums from them to use as giveaways on the show too.
Right. Now, and one thing I do want to encourage is I've never been to a general conference before. A lot of people think, well, I'm not a delegate, I can't go. You can go. I mean, this is our
we'll have the chat room open.
Yeah, the chat room is going to be open. If you're not there, if you're not able to physically go, you can get in the chat room and talk while the business is going on. But we're really trying to encourage, even if you're not a delegate, come spend a few days with us in Lexington, experience what's going on.
All right, let's go ahead and get to the giveaway here.
Yeah, so are we giving away one or two of these, Heath? What's the official status? One. Okay. Use the one.
Right,
we're giving away. I just want I want the guests to know I am sacrificing my poster for you. Here we go.
What did I do wrong?
Here we go, and the winner is Chumpy 76.
Hey,
Chumpy
Pastor Chris
76.
Lyons, good
Yes,
Church
sir.
of the Nazarene guy from Maryland.
Then he's in LA.
Hey,
Maryland
so contact us. Send us an email.
I will talk to him right now.
Okay, we just need mailing information. We'll get that out to you. All right, let's talk about what's coming up here in the future. Next week we have the Table Project. This is something that Matthew has worked out, and really going to talk about social networking.
Inside the church. It's basically inside church social networking. There are some things in the church, basically their motto is, some things in the church that don't need to be on Facebook, but that do need to be shared. And we have the technology to share, stuff and to do it on all kinds of devices. But what if we created smaller, more intimate networking for the church body, and that's really where their heart and their passion is, and we'll be talking with them about that.
All right, on the 28th, Stephanie Ryan will be in studio. She's from FWC Alive, in charge of children's ministries there, and will talk to us about what they're doing.
Good.
And Lord willing, give us some ideas. On April the 4th, Wayne Schmidt will be with us, and he's going to talk to us about his book, Ministry Velocity. This was chosen as the 2012 Outreach Magazine's Resource of the Year.
You know that April the 4th is a holiday, though. That's my birthday.
All righty, and Steve's birthday that day. April the 11th, Beth Peterson will be in studio, and then all the way from Scotland via Skype, Aaron Dowds will be with us. We'll be talking about the children's orphanage there in Haiti. I'm always trip up on the name.
Okapi?
Okapi.
Yeah.
All right. The April the 25th, Mark Wilson will join us. Going to talk about his new book, Filled Up, Poured Out. It's supposed to come out this week, from what we understand. Tomorrow. Yeah. So, looking forward to that. May the 9th, Dr. H.C. Wilson, he is going to join us. He's the General Director of Global Partners. I should say he's the outgoing General Director. This is I wasn't aware of that. I gave him some
breaking news.
Yeah, I gave him some possible dates, and he said, well, we probably should do it before I'm out of office.
Wow. Now, also, we put a link in the chat room. We'll put it on our page today. You've got about 24 hours to join the official Techology Show NCAA bracket on ESPN. If you go on ESPN Bracket Challenge and search for Techology, you can join our group. We'll be giving away a great prize for that.
A pack of 10 indulgences.
All right. So let's talk. Heath, where can our listeners find you on the internet?
They can go to heathmullican.com, and there read some great stuff and find out all about me.
Matthew.
MatthewTG.com.
All right, Brother Steve.
PastorSES@gmail.com.
Is there anywhere on the internet our listeners can find you?
Tumblr.ifollowtheway.com. Or
Someone
either ifollowtheway.tumblr.com, one of those.
one of those two. You can get a hold of him. All righty. You can find me at facebook.com/AKC64. If you want to do further research on anything we discussed today, you can find all the links to the stories we covered at our website, thetechologyshow.com. If you want to contact us, send your emails to thetechologyshow@gmail.com, or you can call 3049-TEOLOGY. That's 304-986-5649. Leave us a message. We may even play your comments on the air. Great having Steve back in studio
Thank you.
today.
Wonderful.
Good having our guest,
Wonderful to be back.
Timmy Young here. Big kudos and thanks to Master TG and all the improvements that he's made.
Yeah, we just continue to try to make it better. That's right.
And to you, our listeners, we thank you
for clicking the donation button.
Yeah.
Located. Hey, point. Let's see, up to your upper right-hand side. You could point to it right now. There
Just
you go.
put
Right up
your
in that,
hand on
right
the
up in that
screen.
vicinity.
Right
Let me
right
switch
there. Am
to
I
you.
close, Teach? Right.
Put your hand
hold
on the screen.
Yeah. Reach out. Reach out.
Deal?
My hand to point of contact.
A little more to the right. A little more. Way over in the corner, actually. Right up there. Up nope. There, right there.
Right there. Yes, please.
Go click that.
Click that. Thanks for joining us. Goodbye, everybody.